I'm 54 years old now. I wake up almost mornings before the sun, not because I'm disciplined, but because sleep doesn't hold me the way it used to.
When the house is quiet like that, I feel the weight of time most clearly. Not in my bones, though, those ache too, but in the things I didn't do. When I was 54, I told myself I was being practical. I remember that age clearly. Old enough to know better, young enough to still believe I had plenty of runway left. That was the year I chose comfort over courage, even though I didn't use those words back then. I use them now because I finally understand what I did. At 78, the future is mostly behind me. There are still days ahead, sure, but no big arcs, no reinventions, no long bets, just maintenance, keeping things going until they don't go anymore. That's when your mind starts sorting through old decisions, turning them over like stones, looking for what lived underneath. In my 20s, I thought courage meant big things. Quitting your job, moving to a different city, falling in love fast. I did some of that. I wasn't timid as a young man. I took risks that made my parents nervous. I chased work that interested me instead of what paid best. I believed, honestly believed, that if something mattered enough, I'd know when to fight for it. By my 30s, life had narrowed a bit. Not in a bad way, just in a real way. There was a mortgage. There were people who depended on me. I learned the pleasure of predictability. Friday nights at home, a reliable paycheck, a reputation for being steady. People trusted me. I liked that. Somewhere in my 40s, the idea of later started doing a lot of work for me. Later, I'd take the chance. Later, I'd have the hard conversation. Later, when things were less busy. Later, when it made more sense. Later became a soft place to set uncomfortable truths. At 54, I was good at my job. Not exceptional, but solid. The kind of man who didn't get promoted quickly, but didn't get laid off either. I had a routine so ingrained I could have followed it half asleep. Same commute, same lunch spot, same small talk with the same people. And I was restless. Not loudly, quietly. The kind of restlessness that doesn't ruin your life, just slowly drains the color out of it. I'd feel it on Sunday evenings, sitting on the couch, knowing exactly how the week would go. I'd feel it when I caught my reflection in office windows, older than I expected, carrying myself like someone who'd already decided not to ask for more. There was an opportunity then. I won't dress it up. It wasn't a dream handed down from the heavens. It was messy and uncertain and would have made things harder for a while. Less money, more risk, a different version of me. I remember sitting at the kitchen table, paperwork spread out, coffee gone cold. I told myself I was being responsible, that it wasn't the right time, that wanting more was a luxury, not a necessity. I chose to stay. What I didn't understand was that staying is also a choice. It just doesn't announce itself. The cost didn't arrive all at once. That's the dangerous part. If choosing comfort had come with an immediate penalty, I might have reconsidered. But life doesn't work that way. It charges you slowly, in small, almost polite installments. A year later, the restlessness had dulled into resignation. I stopped thinking about the other path entirely, not because it stopped mattering, but because thinking about it hurt too much. It was easier to convince myself I'd outgrown that version of myself. My relationships thinned without drama. No big arguments, no slammed doors. Just fewer calls returned, fewer invitations accepted. I was tired. I had work. I'd catch up later. Later again. I told myself I was content, and in many ways I was. That's what makes this hard to explain. Nothing was wrong enough to justify leaving. Nothing was broken enough to fix. Years passed like that. Quiet years, productive years, years where people would have looked at my life and nodded approvingly, stable, sensible, safe. But something in me went unused. I noticed it in small moments. When a younger colleague talked about taking a leap and I felt envy instead of pride. When I avoided mirrors, not out of vanity, but because I didn't recognize the man looking back. When accomplishments landed flat like they belonged to someone else. The turning point wasn't dramatic. It rarely is. I was 63 when a man I'd worked with for decades died suddenly. Heart, they said. One week he was complaining about the coffee. The next week we were standing in a parking lot after the funeral, unsure where to put our hands. I went home that night and sat alone in the dark. I thought about how much of his life I knew only in fragments, lunchroom stories, complaints, plans for retirement he never reached. And I realized how easily my life could be summarized the same way. Not poorly, just narrowly. That was the first time I let myself admit that I'd been waiting for permission that was never coming, waiting for circumstances to line up perfectly, waiting to feel brave without being afraid. Courage doesn't work that way. I know that now. By the time I retired, the shape of my life was set. The days got quieter. Some people faded away entirely. Work had been the scaffolding holding everything together, and once it was gone, there was a lot of empty space. Empty space is honest. It doesn't distract you. I tried hobbies. I tried travel. They were fine, pleasant, but they didn't touch the old regret because regret isn't boredom. It's recognition. The recognition that you knew at some point what mattered to you, and you chose something else. What can't be fixed isn't the job or the path not taken. It's the version of myself who still believed time was abundant. He's gone. I can't go back and tell him what it feels like to sit in a quiet house with all your needs met and something essential still missing. I can't reclaim the years I spent being careful when I should have been honest, or the conversations I softened until they meant nothing, or the risks I calculated into harmlessness. I don't beat myself up anymore. That took a long time. Blame doesn't help at this age. Understanding does. Comfort isn't evil. It kept food on the table. It kept the lights on. It spared me certain kinds of pain. But it also asked for something in return. It asked me to stay smaller than I needed to be. If you're listening to this and you're younger than I am, and most of you are, I'm not here to tell you to blow up your life. I wouldn't respect that advice myself. I'm only saying this. Pay attention to the quiet compromises, the ones that don't feel like losses at the time. Pay attention to what you keep postponing without a clear reason. One day, you'll look back and realize postponing was the decision. I live peacefully now. I have moments of gratitude every day. I also carry sorrow, and it's learned to sit beside me without shouting. That's what old age does. It teaches you to hold conflicting truths without trying to resolve them. I chose comfort over courage at 54, and my life